Hey everybody out there, how you doing? Hope you're having a fine day. I wanted to make another video today and I wanted it to be a little bit different than my past ones. This one's not going to be as structured. This one's just going to be more me talking freely about some of the things that I feel like were missed opportunities in The Last Jedi. These are things that already would fit within the framework of the basic structure of the movie. I'm not going to be changing a ton of things. I'm not going to be rewriting whole sections of the movie. I just feel like within the structure of what Rian Johnson wrote, what the blueprint that he laid out, there was a lot of chances that he had to capitalize on opportunities that would have, I believe, strengthened the story, strengthened the characters, made it a little bit more of a cohesive plot. And I feel like if he had done maybe just a few of these things, there would be a lot less complaints from hardcore Star Wars fans. Uh, so this is just kind of a free, off the top of my head discussion. Nothing too detailed, so let's jump right in. I wanted to start with Kylo Ren, and I wanted to start with him because I feel like he's most people's favorite part of the movie or favorite character within the trilogy. He's more relatable than Rey. I mean, I think people like him more than Rey. I think that's fair to say. He's more humanized than Rey because he has struggle and conflict, and he has parts of himself that we can all relate to with his parent issues and not knowing what the right path should be and not feeling like he's worthy of his family's appreciation or his family's lineage because he's always looking up to Darth Vader. So I think a huge missed opportunity in this movie, and I got this inspiration from seeing somebody's fan fiction on YouTube, and I forget the channel that I saw it on, but they talked about how it would have been really cool to see Kylo Ren explore Vader's castle. And you could have him exploring Vader's castle for a number of different reasons. You could have him going there to try to find a holocron. Maybe he's trying to deepen his understanding of the Sith or deepen his understanding of the dark side of the Force, or he wants to learn more about Anakin and Vader. Maybe because Kylo is so conflicted internally, he's seeking out information that maybe Vader left behind about Vader's own struggles, about the conflict that Vader had within him, and maybe he's trying to find some information to reinforce the way that he feels or change the way he feels and sees the world. So you could have Kylo Ren in a really cool, I think, few scenes. It wouldn't even take up that much time, maybe a minute or two of screen time, exploring Vader's castle and seeing him without much dialogue, just seeing his mannerisms, seeing how he reacts to things. Maybe he does find a holocron or he does find whatever he's looking for there. It doesn't have to be a holocron. Maybe he just wants to explore it and see the magnitude of what was built, what came before him. So I think that's a cool little thing. It would do. I hate fan service too. I hate when they just shove things in just to shove things in. But this is part of world building, and it's reconnecting the movies to the past movies, and the whole Force Awakens. Kylo Ren basically wanted to be Darth Vader. He looked up to Darth Vader. So visiting Vader's castle in The Last Jedi would be really cool for Kylo Ren. I think it would be really cool for the fans of this movie because they'd get to see a new, the new version of Vader, whatever you want to call him, his ancestor, interacting in a manner with the the old established way, and within that, you could explore Kylo's fall to the dark side a little bit. I know we got the scene with between Luke, the flashback scenes with Luke and Kylo, and it shows how Kylo thought that Luke was betraying him, so that spurned his fall to the dark side. And We were told that Snoke had been influencing Kylo through the years or whatever somehow, but none of that's really gone into detail. We're shown the scenes, and then we got the flashbacks in The Force Awakens of Kylo and the burning Jedi temple that Luke built. I guess that's what it was supposed to be. But I think it would really do the character of Kylo justice and his overall arc justice if they showed us more detail as to why he so strongly fell to the dark side, why it is that he went from being a Padawan sleeping in that tent to seeing Luke over top of him, defending himself from Luke, pulling down the hut, and then he immediately starts murdering his fellow Jedi that are training at the temple. I don't know, that seems like a big leap to me. It seems like something that would take a little bit more. Like with Anakin, we saw Anakin's fall was a little bit more detailed, and we saw how he did the Sand People in Attack of the Clones, and he murdered them all, and then he felt regret and he felt bad about it. But then we see him defend the Emperor and help the Emperor take out Mace Windu, and basically after that point, he knew there was no going back. And then in one of the following scenes, we saw him go and kill all the little younger Jedi in training at the temple on Coruscant. So I think it would help strengthen the believability and just overall his whole story and his character, simply because Kylo is the best part of the new trilogy. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Nobody's going to say, I mean, with all due respect, Rey isn't that interesting. I mean, hasn't really struggled or had anything to overcome. I mean, she's had maybe minor growth, but nothing that really attaches us to the character. So I think just those two little things about maybe giving us a cool little scene with Kylo exploring Vader's castle and finding something or searching for information or some sort of connection to the past. And then you could have that scene where he says the past is dead, you got to kill it, because he could discover something there that maybe he doesn't like. And there's just a lot of ways you could work it in to make it effective. Another missed opportunity along the Kylo Ren lines, and this has been harbored on by a lot of people, is the Knights of Ren. I mean, that was just like they've just been completely written out of the movies, and I don't get that really. I mean, we saw pictures of them, but Disney spent the money to create costumes and to shoot scenes and footage and do the CGI with them. So they spent money on them, and then it just kind of goes into nothing. I know Rian Johnson said, well, if he had put them in the movie, he would have just had to kill them off because he couldn't fit them in. But then all of us are sitting here thinking, well, you could fit in a 40-minute scene that serves no purpose at all, that is just cringeworthy and Canto Bite, and you can fit in a boring-ass space chase that is just riddled with plot holes as to why the First Order couldn't stop the Resistance, but you couldn't fit in just a little bit about the Knights of Ren. Even if you said, I mean, even if they weren't in the movie, if you didn't want to force them in the movie, you could say that they were off in another part of the galaxy doing something for the First Order. Or what I thought would be cool was at the very end when Kylo and Rey are fighting each other after Snoke's dead, is you could have them show up and help defend Kylo against Rey or something like that. Or even cooler is if when Kylo tries to take out Snoke, or he does take out Snoke, instead, if the Knights of Ren were actually there and they actually sided with Snoke, and now all the people that Kylo had trained and had his own posse were now against him on Snoke's side, and it would create tension for the next movie, and it would create layers and conflict and relationship between Kylo Ren and his own Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. So there's just a lot of opportunities missed there. I mean, even just simple stuff. I mean, the fact that they're not even mentioned or not even talked about, or that's just kind of makes me think just poor execution and delivery. Uh, since we were talking about Snoke, I know a lot of people say the same thing. Why was nothing about him explained? Why? Why? That you can tell me all the excuses you want. You can say that he was just a plot device. You can say that the Emperor had no backstory. You can say all these excuses you can make up, but it is really, really terrible that he wasn't given a single few scenes, maybe one or two, explaining, talking about him. In the Star Wars lore books that are canon, his slippers have more of a backstory than him. I mean, seriously, Google Snoke's slippers, and there's like a half a page about Snoke's gold slippers, but we can't learn anything about him because Rian Johnson didn't like the character, or he didn't fit the end point that Rian Johnson wanted to get to. And that's just bad. That's almost arrogance when something is built up. Like JJ set up and built up this dark, big, overbearing, overly powerful. They say he's been around for so long, waiting. This uber powerful villain that is supposed to be stronger than the Emperor and Yoda in the Force, and all this stuff, and you don't even take like a minute to talk about it. It's mind-boggling. And it's arrogant. I say that because it's almost like Rian Johnson came into this and said he didn't care what was established before. Even thinking about the Knights of Ren, or even characters that have been changed from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. He didn't care what was already established. He was going to make the movie that he wanted to make. He had an idea, and that's that. It was his movie. And that just is not, it doesn't work in a universe like Star Wars that has so much material already established. And when you're writing a trilogy, that doesn't work, especially because there's a director after you that has to make something interesting. And at this point, there's really no threat or no interesting plot lines going into The Last Jedi. So that was just another missed opportunity that plenty of people have talked about. I don't need to go into detail that much more, but it's just the funniest thing is how his slippers have more lore about him than Snoke. That's bad. Backstory on Rey. When I saw the movie, I didn't care that she was a nobody. I was kind of happy that she wasn't a Skywalker. She wasn't a Kenobi. She wasn't just another person in the bloodline and making Star Wars universe feel so small. So I appreciated that. I'm not somebody who wanted her to be somebody. But then when you sit there and think about how she's so powerful and she can do so many things after learning about the Force a day ago, and she's just so good at everything and faces no challenges, it really doesn't help that. It doesn't help that character when you say that she's a nobody and she has no backstory and her parents were just alcoholic druggies, wasters, whatever. That it's contradictory because okay, she's amazing and powerful, so there has to be a reason why. But no, there isn't a reason why. It's just how it is. So that's just confusing. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know why they would do it like that. But maybe JJ will retcon Rian Johnson's retcon in the next movie. Well, directors going at it between each other. So the reason why these things are important, these backstories, the explaining Kylo Ren's fall and explaining Snoke or Rey, is because Star Wars and other things that have such huge fan bases to them that have survived for so long, like Star Wars and Star Trek and these things, is because there's immense world building. Somebody else said it smarter than me, that the setting is a character in itself. The world is a character in itself. The whole setting of the Star Wars universe has its own characteristics and its own personality and its own life. And we like to learn about that. We like to see new things and see new planets and understand how things came about. That's why there's so much material in the extended universe. That's why, even though the prequels weren't the best delivered to us, and there's a lot of things wrong with the prequels, George Lucas also gave us a lot of new material, and he was world building. We got to see the Senate, and we got to see new planets, and we got to see how the Jedi interact with politicians, and we got to see the Jedi and their failures, and we got to see the Sith rise, and that's all world building. That's cool. That's why we keep coming back. It's not just because we think the movies are cool, because there's a lot of flaws in all these movies. But when you give us world building along with the movies, it creates fertile ground for our own imaginations to go with it. Like the reason why people play with the Star Wars toys like they did, or they play with these action figures, or they write their own fan fiction, is because you gave them a universe and a sandbox to work within. And they can then take their imaginations and create something of their own. And that's beautiful, because you have a creator creating something that people love, and then you have creative people using that to create their own things. And it just continues the cycle, and that's how things such as Star Wars exist for so long, because of the fans taking the world that was given to them and adding to it and imagining what could be. So that's just why world building is so important in these movies. Another missed opportunity could have just been Ghost Anakin or Ghost Kenobi. I know we got Ghost Yoda, but just seeing Ghost, I mean, this isn't a big one, but just seeing them somewhere would be cool. I mean, you would think maybe Anakin would just come back to Kylo Ren and be like, dude, uh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been. I shouldn't have been evil. So what you're doing isn't right. But I guess then we wouldn't have a movie. And plus, like I said in my other videos, why don't just the Force Ghosts come back and just kill all the First Order guys anyway? Since now they can call down bolts of lightning. But that's a whole other issue. Another thing that really bothered me was, and it was a missed opportunity, was just having a moment between Luke and Chewie when Luke found out that Han Solo was dead. This one is seems lazy to me, because you, as a writer and a director, you want powerful emotional moments, and there was a good one when um Luke was in the Falcon and R2D2 played him the recording of Leia. That was a good one, and I liked that scene a lot. I think most people did. But giving Luke and Chewie a moment to just, even if there's not much dialogue, just having those two have a moment um, of nostalgia, and realizing that there's only a few of them left, and that Han was so important to them. And then you could use Han's death effectively to get Luke to support the First Order. I mean, the Luke that we all know, that we've all known for the last 40 years until last December or November, whenever this movie came out, was one that would not give up on his friends. And if he found out that Han Solo died for this cause, oh, yeah, he would be there, lightsabers blazing, ready to go. But that's not the Luke we got, and that's not, I wasn't writing it, so. But just that moment between those two characters could have been so powerful for a director to have in his movie, because we all know the relationship that Han and Chewie and Luke had, and they were like brothers. And Luke hasn't seen Chewie in how many decades, and hasn't seen Han in a while, and now he just shows up on an island with the Falcon, but no Han. And it just seems weird to me that they wouldn't give them a moment to just to feel it, and just a powerful moment between two old friends, just mourning over the death of another good friend. And then you could effectively use that, believably use that, to get Luke to join the Resistance, because he would in a heartbeat join. But like I said, I didn't write it. another thing that kind of goes into the world building, but also just goes into making characters stronger, is Rey and Kylo training. I was super excited for this movie. I was super excited for The Last Jedi because I thought we would get like some really cool side by side parallel training between Rey with Luke. Maybe he's teaching her to stay balanced and to all the light side stuff, you know. And then we'd see Snoke with Kylo, and Snoke is edging Kylo on to use his emotions and use his power and his anger and his fear. And I just felt like you could do a really cool thing, like filmmaking wise, where you could have them paralleled between each other. You could do some really cool cut shots where you have Rey doing training with Luke, and then it cuts away to Snoke and Kylo. You could just do it really effectively and really coolly, and it would help strengthen these characters because there's not much character building. They're kind of just they're characters that are established a little bit, and then they're just put in situations. And I think a lot of the emotional resonance is lost because we haven't really seen them grow as much as we would like to. Even the characters that have grown the most, like Kylo or Poe, they haven't grown that much. I mean, Poe goes from a hot shot in this movie to somebody who's a little bit more patient, which is cool. That's fine. I liked his arc or whatever. Kylo goes from being uber evil and unsure of himself in The Force Awakens to really unsure of himself in The Last Jedi, and then goes back to being evil, I guess, at the end because he was he Rey didn't go with him, and he got bested by her again, and Luke showed up, so he's just back to being evil again. Uh, so that was just another little missed opportunity, just to really fortify the characters and world building, basically seeing how Kylo would train and how Rey would train. It would be cool, and it would serve their characters. Uh, Finn, Finn to me was when I was um, coming out of The Force Awakens, I thought he was going to be the one of the cooler characters in this trilogy. I thought we've never seen a stormtrooper turn to the good guys. He wasn't overly good at anything, so he had a lot of room for growth. There was a lot of ways you could take his character. But in this one, he's kind of just um, been belittled to just like a side character slash comic relief. And exploring his backstory as a stormtrooper would have been really, really cool and would have really strengthened him because right now he's going into the third movie. We don't really know uh, anything too much about him or anything that interesting. I mean, even with the whole thing about them tracing them through lights, the First Order tracing the Resistance through lightspeed. What if people on the Resistance ship thought that Poe was a traitor because he used to be part of the First Order, and maybe you could have tension between people on the ship, and you could go into a little bit more detail about that. Just little things like that that don't need to change the fundamentals of the movie or the way that it's written, but would just add so much depth and color to the way that the story's written and the story that the characters go through and their own growth. Um, Canto Bite was a missed opportunity because it's a waste of 40 minutes of the movie, and it felt like a prequel scene. It felt like a prequel world with these stupid not dinosaurs, stupid deer horse things. We even got a yippee from a little kid that just reminded me way too much of Anakin from Episode 1. It was just politically charged propaganda. I thought it was funny, as other people have said, that it's an anti-capitalist motif in a movie being made by Disney, who basically are like the most powerful company in the capitalist world today, maybe. I don't know, just it's really hypocritical but funny at the same time for people who get it. Uh, so but if you did do Canto Bite, I think a missed opportunity would be having Lando on Canto Bite. Why wouldn't Lando be on Canto Bite? Why would you go to Canto Bite to introduce some weak ass character who's a hacker who's just been sitting in prison for some reason, waiting to break somebody out? Like, this dude is literally just a plot device sitting in prison. He can break out, but he never does it until somebody shows up and needs him to do it, or somebody needs a story to be written. So here's this guy. It was just really bad. You could have had Lando. Maybe Lando was the hacker. I don't know. Or he knew the guy. Maybe it was Lobot who was the hacker. Lando's side character. But it was just because the planet felt like something you'd see Lando at, and so many other people have said the same thing. Even if he wasn't a major part of the plot or the story, if he was a 5 minute cameo, 10 minute cameo, something. I mean, where did he go at the end of Return of the Jedi? He was with the group and everything. So who knows? It's just another opportunity I'm pointing out. So one of the last ones I wanted to talk about was how they handled Luke at the end. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the angsty hermit Luke, emo Luke, was terrible, because I do understand that after 40 years and after failing with your nephew, it could change you, okay? But him not actually being on Crate feels really like a really bad missed opportunity, because they show us his X-wing in the water, and it would have just been such poetic justice if he had lifted the X-wing out of the water like he couldn't do in The Empire Strikes Back, and it would almost be like full circle, where it started out he couldn't. Years later, he's finally the powerful Jedi that Yoda was, and he can do it. And then for him to go back to Crate, and you could have, if he was on Crate, we could have had one of probably the most epic scene in Star Wars movie cinema history. If Luke had been there and had walked out there and had actually, what if he had, I saw this in the This Is How It Should Have Ended video, but they shoot all the lasers at him and he freezes the laser bolts in midair like Kylo Ren did, or if he crushes some of the ATSTs or whatever the new ones are called, the not Empire's ATSTs, ATATs, I don't know, whatever. If you had crushed them, or if we got just a display of what Luke has become, and it really would have brought excitement to a pretty boring movie, like really boring movie. It would have been something that gave it a little bit of life at the end. You would have had everybody in the theater on their feet cheering. I know that's for sure, and I know people would love that. But I mean, I guess we can't give people what they love. We have to subvert their expectations, right? So him actually being there and actually having some badass things to do would have just been way better than what we got. I mean, the force projection is a cool power and all that, and it was cool. A lot, like, yeah, it was fine, but it was a missed opportunity, that's for sure. Especially then when you consider what it could have done for Kylo's character. Because if Luke had showed up and Luke had done all this badass stuff and had taken out all the resistance guys there, or all the force first order guys there, or whatever, letting the rest of the resistance get away, you could have some pretty epic shots and a pretty epic scene of Kylo and Luke's showdown. They could have a duel at the end. And if you had Kylo kill Luke at the end, what that would do for the strength of his character and the fear that we're supposed to feel when we think of Kylo Ren would be astronomical. I mean, this guy would have killed Han Solo. He would have killed Luke Skywalker. He would have killed Snoke. He would be a bad dude that you wouldn't want to fear, or you wouldn't want to mess with, and you would legitimate fear. Going into the 9th movie, we would be like, yeah, Kylo Ren, he's serious, and he can mess some shit up. But he just gets played. Like, he gets John Cena. You can't see Luke. It was bad. It was bad because it was really really big missed opportunity in character building for Kylo Ren and just giving us something that we've all always wanted to see with Luke Skywalker. Like, the reason why they make these movies is for us. I mean, they make them to make money, but they're supposed to be making them for the people who enjoy them, and to just blatantly not give people what they want. It's not artistic, it's just kind of arrogant or selfish or completely ignorant of what you're doing. I don't know, incompetence. I guess, who knows? I mean, there's just a lot of missed opportunities in this movie, and that's what, when I first saw it, that's the first thing that I realized is like, there were so many cool things that were right there to be expanded on, and they took it in just the completely ass wrong way. And uh, I'm really hoping that maybe they learn from their mistakes, and instead of trying to be so edgy and subversive and, oh look, you thought you were getting this, but we're so smart for you, we're gonna make this. It doesn't work. That's not what people want, and that's not what is going to guarantee you success in the future. That's for sure. I mean, just look at the way that this movie has divided people. It's pretty apparent, despite people that want to deny it or people that enjoyed the movie, which is fine. This is all opinions, basically. But if you completely deny that there are issues with this movie, then, I mean, there's no talking to you, and there's like, uh, it's not even worth the energy, honestly. Um, but those are just a couple of the missed opportunities. I've kind of been going on for a little bit, so I want to wrap this up. But let me know what you guys think. I know I missed a ton. I know there's a ton of things that they could have done, or there's other missed opportunities within the movie. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know other missed opportunities. Let me know if you think the things that I said weren't better, or were things that we didn't need. Who knows? So yeah, let me know. I'll be making another video soon, and hope you guys enjoyed it.